My sister's obsession got me attacked. A sister dumps her kids for an 8-week vacation and arranges for her sibling to be assaulted when she refuses to babysit. The knock came just after 9 on a Saturday morning. I hadn't even made coffee yet. When I opened the door, there stood my sister's 2 boys, 10 and 7 years old, with overnight bags at their feet and wide eyes like they'd just seen a ghost. "Mom said you're watching us. She's going on vacation." I blinked. The younger one handed me a crumpled note, scribbled in my sister's handwriting. 8 weeks. 8. That's how long she expected me to babysit without asking, without notice, without so much as a phone call. This was not the first time she'd done something like this, just the most brazen. Growing up, Natalie was the golden girl. Thick curls, bright green eyes, and a smile that could part clouds. Mom paraded her like a trophy. I, with my straight dark hair and quiet voice, was the shadow she never noticed trailing behind. "You should dress more like your sister. Why can't you be more outgoing like Natalie?" It never stopped. Natalie got the praise, the attention, the new clothes. I got lectures about posture and secondhand sweaters. And when she started winning beauty pageants at 14, it was like I stopped existing altogether. She wasn't just pretty. She was cruel. In high school, she flirted with my first boyfriend, then bragged about sleeping with him. I cried to Mom. Mom told me to stop being dramatic. "Sisters fight sometimes," she said, without looking up from her soap opera. I left for college on a full-ride scholarship. Natalie barely graduated. But guess who got her tuition paid by our parents? It wasn't the one making honor roll. I built a life out of spite. Graduated with honors. Landed a job in tech. Bought a condo by 24. Designer bags lined my closet, not because I was flashy, but because they were armor. Every stitched logo a reminder I wasn't that forgotten, frumpy girl anymore. But no matter how far I got, Natalie kept trying to drag me back. Passive-aggressive texts. Insults slipped between holiday toasts. "That purse real, or just a good knockoff? You sure you want another helping?" Just saying, muffin tops don't hide themselves. I kept my cool. Always. Because that's what I learned. Stay silent, stay small, stay safe. Until that Saturday. I let the boys in, gave them cereal, and called Natalie 15 times. She didn't answer. When she finally picked up, her voice was syrupy sweet. "Relax. They're your nephews. What else are you doing with your time?" "I have a job. A life," I snapped. "You're such a drama queen. Don't make this about you." Didn't sleep that night. Not a minute. The boys were curled up on the couch, already too used to being shuffled around. I watched them, heart twisting, and wondered what kind of mother just leaves. I called our mom. She answered on the second ring, like she knew I'd call eventually. "You need to support your sister," she said flatly. "She's going through a lot. She dumped her kids on me, Mom. Without warning. I have work. They're your nephews. Family takes care of each other." The words hit like cold water. Family. That word had never protected me before. I hung up. There was no point. My mother had always been Natalie's biggest fan. The rest of us? Just props in her one-woman show. By Sunday afternoon, I decided I couldn't wait 8 weeks. I started researching emergency childcare. Most were booked or cost more than my rent. That's when I texted Natalie, "You have 24 hours, or I'm going to the police." No response. But 30 minutes later, my doorbell rang. A man I didn't recognize stood outside. Buzz cut. Tattoo on his neck. Dead eyes. "You the sister?" My stomach dropped. "Who are you?" He didn't answer. Just shoved past me. The boys screamed. I lunged for my phone, but he knocked it out of my hand. "Natalie says you're confused. I'm just here to set things straight." He stepped closer, fists clenched. I ran. I didn't think, didn't scream. Just sprinted for the back door and into the neighbor's yard. Behind me, I heard the man yell, "You can't run forever." I made it to the street, banged on a stranger's door until they answered and called 911. By the time the police arrived, he was gone. So were the boys. Natalie had them again, and she was just getting started. "If you're not here in 2 hours, I'm calling CPS." Silence. Then her voice dropped low, sharp. "You do that, and I swear I'll call your job. Tell them you're not taking your meds. That you're unstable." I froze. She knew my diagnosis. She knew how much I loved my job, and she was willing to weaponize both. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just Natalie being selfish. This was something darker, and I hadn't seen the worst of it yet. The police took my statement, but without bruises or broken locks. It was just my word against hers. They told me to seek a restraining order. They couldn't do anything else. I filed the paperwork the next morning, hands trembling as I wrote her name. Natalie Marie Fenton. Sister. Biological. Dangerous. While I waited for the court date, I changed my locks, added a door camera, bought pepper spray, and canceled my upcoming trip to Australia to meet my long-distance boyfriend's family. Everything was unraveling. The worst part? I missed the boys. Not Natalie. Not my mom. Just those two kids, who deserved so much better. Then the packages started arriving. 3 in 1 week. All addressed to me. No return label. Inside, shredded pictures of me from family albums, dead flowers, a single baby shoe. A note, scrawled in red pen. Snitches burn. I showed the police. They filed a report. But again, no fingerprints. No arrest. My therapist said I should cut all ties, block her, move if I had to. But then came the email. Subject, you win. Body, I'm sorry. You were right. I'm getting help. I booked a flight. I need you to take the boys just for a few days while I'm in rehab. Please. For them. I stared at the screen. Maybe she meant it. Maybe it was a trap. But the boys. I told myself this was the right thing. That I was strong now. That I could protect them. I told myself a lot of things. And every one of them was a lie. I agreed. Not because I trusted her. Because I didn't trust the system to keep the boys safe if she left them elsewhere. Natalie arrived 2 days later in a car I didn't recognize, wearing oversized sunglasses and fake tears. The boys clung to her like they hadn't seen her in years. She kissed their cheeks, handed me a folder of forged rehab documents, and left without looking back. I didn't sleep that night either. Not out of fear this time, but responsibility. The boys deserved normalcy. Meals. Bedtime stories. Peace. We fell into a routine. Morning cartoons. Pack lunches. Homework at the kitchen table. For a brief moment, my house felt like a home. Until the 4th night. I heard a noise just after midnight. A soft tap at the window. I checked the camera. Nothing. Maybe the wind. The next morning, there was a smear of red lipstick across my door frame and a cigarette butt on the porch. I reviewed the footage. It had glitched from 11:52 to 12:17. I called the police again. They suggested it was a prank. I knew better. Natalie never went to rehab. The folder was fake. I confirmed it with the clinic. They had no patient by her name. I tried to stay calm for the boys, but every creak in the floor, every flicker in the hallway light, sent my heart racing. Then, one morning, the older boy came into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes. Auntie, he whispered. Mom was outside last night. She told me not to tell you. My knees gave out. Did she say anything else? He nodded. She said you were trying to steal us, and that she was going to stop you. The next night, I didn't sleep either. I waited. The night was silent. Too silent. I sat in the living room with the lights off, a baseball bat across my lap and my phone gripped tight in one hand. The boys were asleep upstairs, unaware that their mother had turned our lives into a standoff. At 2:14 a.m., the porch light flickered, then went dark. I held my breath. Waited. Then the sound came, metal scraping against the back door. I crept toward the kitchen, every floorboard threatening to give me away. Through the glass pane, I saw a movement. A silhouette. Someone trying the handle. I called 911, whispering as I moved toward the stairs. There's someone trying to break in. Please. Hurry. Stay on the line, the dispatcher said. Police are on their way. I reached the boys' room and locked the door behind me. They stirred as I tucked them under the covers. It's just a drill, I whispered. Stay quiet. Auntie's here. Then glass shattered. Downstairs. I pressed my ear to the door. Heavy footsteps. A man's voice, gruff and low. Not Natalie. She said there'd be cash. Kids too. Another voice replied. Check the bedroom. I backed away from the door, heart slamming. I had seconds. I moved the dresser in front of the handle and climbed into the closet, phone still connected. They're inside, I whispered. 2 men. Searching the house. The dispatcher stayed calm. Officers are 1 minute out. Stay hidden. Footsteps on the stairs. I held my breath. The doorknob jiggled. Locked. A crash. They were trying to force their way in. Then, sirens. Red and blue lights lit up the window. A shout from downstairs. Then feet pounding back down the steps. I heard the front door fly open. By the time I came out of the closet, the boys were crying. I held them until the police confirmed the house was clear. The men were gone. But one thing was clear. Natalie had sent them. And she wasn't done with me yet. The next morning, I gave my statement, again. this time to a detective who actually seemed to care. Two men, forced entry, ran when police arrived. No cameras caught their faces, but will dust for prints. I nodded, numb. They said Natalie sent them. They were looking for cash. For the boys. He scribbled furiously, then asked, "Has she done anything like this before?" I handed him the fake rehab documents. The threatening packages. The lipstick smear photos. I didn't hold back. She's escalating. I don't think she's going to stop until I'm ruined. Or gone. The detective promised they'd increase patrols. But we both knew how thin the department was stretched. I was mostly on my own. I called a lawyer that afternoon. Explained everything. He listened quietly, then said, "We need to file for emergency guardianship of the children. Today. But I'm not their mother. You're the only adult in their lives showing an ounce of responsibility. If what you're telling me holds up in court, we can protect them, and you." I didn't hesitate. By sundown, the paperwork was filed. Natalie was served notice of a court date. 2 days later, she posted a video online. Crocodile tears. Shaky voice. Rambling about a controlling sister who stole her children and ruined her life. Comments poured in. Sympathy. Outrage. People who didn't know the truth ready to burn me at the stake. But one comment stood out. "Funny, Natalie. Weren't you bragging about getting revenge on your sister at Sammy's party last week? I've got the messages. Want me to post the screenshots?" The tide shifted. Natalie deleted the video. And I knew she was unraveling. But unraveling people are dangerous. Especially when they think they've got nothing left to lose. Court was scheduled for Friday. On Wednesday, the boys' school called. They said someone claiming to be their mother had come to pick them up early. She didn't have proper ID, the principal told me, but she was very insistent. Caused a scene when we refused. I barely heard the rest. My blood had gone cold. I drove straight to the school, heart in my throat, praying she hadn't taken them already. But they were safe. Confused. Shaken. I held them close, feeling the cracks in our little world grow wider. That night, Natalie tried again. She left a voicemail, soft, almost reasonable. "I just miss my boys. Let's not make this worse than it has to be. We can fix this. You don't have to take it to court." I didn't respond. So she showed up at my house. Banged on the door like a battering ram. Screamed through the keyhole. "I know you're in there. You think you're better than me? You've always been jealous." I called the police. Again. She peeled off before they arrived. But they saw the damage. Cracked doorframe, broken porch light. They took photos, filed another report. Promised they'd be present at the courthouse. The boys watched cartoons while I sat in the kitchen shaking. I had underestimated her. She wasn't just reckless. She was desperate. And desperation makes monsters out of even the most familiar faces. Friday morning, I stood in front of the mirror, buttoning a shirt I hadn't worn since my last interview. The boys were silent at breakfast. Even the cartoons felt too loud. Outside the courthouse, cameras waited. Not for me, but for the spectacle. Natalie had leaked the date on social media, claiming it was her last shot to stop a jealous sister from kidnapping her children. She arrived in a cream sweater and sunglasses, arm in a sling, walking slow like she was the victim in a tragic drama. Her lawyer flanked her like a bodyguard. The judge was stern. Efficient. She wasted no time. Natalie's attorney painted her as a struggling mother, overwhelmed, misjudged, smeared by an embittered sibling. He called her emotional, not malicious. He blamed the packages and threats on coincidence and anonymous trolls. Then my lawyer stood. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She presented the rehab fraud, the school's testimony, the police reports. She played the voicemail for the court. When my turn came, I spoke slowly. Not because I was scared, because I wanted every word to land. I never asked to raise these children. But someone had to care. Someone had to protect them. If not me, who? There were no theatrics. Just truth. Natalie never looked at me. The judge took an hour to review. When she returned, she read aloud her ruling. This court grants temporary guardianship to the petitioner, pending further review. Visitation is hereby suspended until the respondent undergoes a full psychological assessment and complies with protective stipulations. Gasps. A murmur through the gallery. Natalie's mouth hung open like a broken hinge. I didn't flinch. Because this wasn't victory. This was survival. And the boys? Still holding my hands, one on each side. That was all I needed. Winning in court didn't mean peace. It meant war in a different shape. Natalie's online followers turned vicious. My inbox flooded with threats. People called me a kidnapper, a liar, a narcissist. They didn't know the half of it, but they were eager to choose sides. She gave interviews to shady podcasts, claimed I forged evidence, said I'd always hated her because I was the plain sister. I stopped going out, kept the boys home from school for a week. Every shadow outside my window felt like a warning. Then came the letter, a handwritten note, delivered without postage. Your win won't last. Those boys aren't yours. You don't deserve them. Tick, tick. No signature. Just a lock of hair taped to the bottom. I turned it into the police. They took it seriously this time. Increased patrols, opened a new investigation. But the fear? That stayed. The boys sensed it. They asked if we were safe. I lied and said yes. What else could I do? Then something shifted. People who had once doubted me began to speak out. Natalie's old friends came forward with stories about neglect, abuse, manipulation. One woman posted screenshots of Natalie bragging about the drama she was stirring. Momentum began to tilt. I wasn't alone anymore. And for the first time in months, I saw a future that didn't end in courtrooms or threats. Just maybe a quiet life. But Natalie wasn't finished. She was planning one last move. It started with a voicemail from an unfamiliar number. No caller ID. I know what she's planning. You need to be careful. That's all it said. No name. No details. Just static and those chilling words. I reported it to the police, but without more, there was nothing they could do. Then Natalie's ex, yes, the father of her children, showed up at my office. I hadn't seen him in years. She reached out, he said. Tried to convince me to file for custody. Promised she'd make it worth my while. He looked ashamed. I told her no. And I thought you should know. She's unraveling fast. That night, I noticed the back gate swinging open. Inside the garden, etched into the soil, were 4 words. I'm coming for them. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I got ready. Motion sensors. Floodlights. Cameras inside and out. I enrolled the boys in a self-defense class under the pretense of fun fitness. Then, I waited. It happened 2 weeks later. She broke in during the day. Thought the house would be empty. She didn't know we'd come back early from the park, or that the neighbor had spotted her climbing the fence and called it in. She was in the kitchen when we came through the front door. For a split second, we stared at each other. She looked wild, hollow, like something inside her had snapped for good. They're mine, she said. You had no right. Before I could respond, police stormed in behind her. She didn't resist, just dropped to her knees and smiled at the boys. Mommy's back. They didn't move. Not toward her. Not at all. They just stared, like looking at a ghost. Natalie was arrested on the spot. And I finally breathed. The days after Natalie's arrest passed in a fog. I expected to feel triumphant. Instead, I felt tired. Just bone deep, soul-worn tired. The boys didn't ask many questions. They were quiet, especially the younger one. I took them to the park, made pancakes with chocolate chips, played board games on the living room floor like it meant something. Maybe it did. One night, I caught the older boy standing in the hallway, just outside my bedroom. Do we live here now? He asked. I nodded. If you want to. For as long as you need. He nodded back, turned around, and went to bed. That was it. No grand gesture. Just quiet acceptance. The lawyer called. Natalie had been denied bail. Multiple charges pending: trespassing, breaking and entering, child endangerment. The evidence was airtight. Her online presence had become her undoing. I started receiving letters. Some from strangers, thanking me for standing up. Others from people who had known Natalie and now saw her differently. But one stood out, handwritten, neat cursive. It was from Natalie. No apology. Just a single line. You always wanted my life. Now you've got it. Hope it's everything you dreamed. I didn't respond. I didn't even finish reading it. Because the truth was, I never wanted her life. I wanted peace. And for the first time in my life, I could see the path to it. Not in revenge. Not in court orders. Not even in safety systems or legal guardianship. But in routine. In sleepy kids and early mornings and burnt toast. In calm. And I was going to fight like hell to keep it. 6 months later, the house feels different. Still quiet, still small, but not hollow. It's filled now. With life, with schedules, with small joys that used to slip through the cracks. The boys call me Andy still, but it feels heavier now. Warmer. Like it carries more than just biology. It carries trust. We have rhythms now. Saturday morning pancakes. Wednesday night spelling tests. Movie nights where the younger one always falls asleep 10 minutes in. head on my shoulder. Their therapist says stability is the best medicine. That consistency will heal what chaos carved into them. I believe it. Natalie pled guilty. No trial. Her lawyer negotiated counseling, probation, and restricted visitation supervised, once a month, if they agree. So far, they haven't. I've stopped watching the door. The cameras still work, but I don't check them daily. I sleep with my phone on silent. Sometimes, I still dream about her. Sometimes it's a knock at the door, and she's standing there, calm, smiling, holding something behind her back. I always wake before I see what it is. But then I hear footsteps in the hallway, small ones, and I know it doesn't matter. This is my life now. Not one I stole. Not one I tricked anyone into. One I built. One I bled for. One I chose. And if there's a moral, I guess it's this. Sometimes, the people who try to destroy you end up giving you the very thing they tried to take. Purpose, family, and a reason to fight for the quiet kind of love that doesn't ask for anything in return. Just a home. And finally, after everything, that's what we are.